quick. Okay.
Right. It's exciting.
Hello, Steady On community, and welcome to this book launch celebration where it's all about you, Robin W. Pearson. Happy launch day.
Thank you. Yay.
We are so excited to be helping spread the word about your new book, Till I Can't Get the Light Right, Till I Want No More. And this is your second book to
Yes.
be launched out into the world, right? Some of you that follow the Steady On virtual book club might remember that Robin was here in December talking about A Long Time Coming, which we just loved that book. And so we've gathered here today with, that kind of sounds like I'm going to do a wedding or something. Not quite. We've gathered here today to
That's
talk
fitting,
about,
then.
what did you say?
That would be fitting.
No. Yes, it would. To talk about this Till I Want No More and hear a little bit from Robin and some of her friends and a couple of my friends. And Robin's daughter, Kate, is here. Robin's friend and agent, Cynthia Rookty. I've been practicing for 2 seconds in my head. Rookty is here. I'm trying to get your name right. And so we're going to just have a great time talking about this. And Robin, just congratulations from us to you. This is just a wonderful thing. And thank you for letting us celebrate it with you. So I want to start by just reading the synopsis of this book, if that's okay, before we launch into some questions, and if you're watching live, feel free to put some questions. I'm going to do my very best to keep up with that. And you can ask Robin questions, or you could ask Kate questions about Robin. That might be fair game too. Or maybe Cynthia questions about Robin. I mean, we can learn all kinds of things maybe. So, but I'm going to just read the synopsis of the book. I'm so excited to get into it. When the man she loved years ago returns to town, one young woman's complicated past rises again, threatening to expose her well-kept secrets. If Maxine could put her finger on the moment when her life went into a tailspin, she would point back 20 years to the day her daddy died. She tells herself he's the only person who ever really knew and loved her, and if he hadn't left her behind, her future would have taken a different path. No absentee mother, no stepfather, no rebellious ripping and running during her teenage years, and no JD, who gave her wandering young heart a home, at least for a time. But that's over and done with. All grown up now, Maxine has pledged her heart and ring finger to Theodore Charles, the man she'll promise to love, honor, and obey in front of God and everybody. At least that's what she's telling anybody who will listen. The only folks buying it are the dog and the readers of her column, however. Her best friend and family aren't having it, not even Celeste, the double bass playing 13-year-old the community of Mount Laurel, North Carolina, believes is Maxine's adopted sister. And apparently neither is the newly returned JD, dun, right? Who seems intent on toppling Maxine's reconstructed life. As her wedding day marches ever closer, Maxine confronts what it means to really be known and loved by examining what's buried in her own heart and exposing truth that has never seen the light of day. So that's just a little bit about the book. Before we dive into it, though, Robin, will you, for those who might not be familiar kind of with your story, your backstory, will you tell us just a little bit about yourself, your family, maybe introduce Kate? Is your firstborn? Is that right? No.
She's my firstborn daughter, but second born.
Okay, second born.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah. Over.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you call yourself a writer.
Well, I started writing about, as we've talked about before, about 20 years ago. I worked for a publishing company, but after that, I started freelancing for some publishing companies and for a magazine called Family Digest. And that was when I started out with my first son in Florida. And then we moved around. I kept freelancing and I got inspired to write by the stories that came from my family. And I started putting those down. And that's when A Long Time Coming was birthed. And after, I guess, several years, a couple decades, that book was published. And during that time, I was finally encouraged to move on. I'd been editing A Long Time Coming for so long, trying to, just moving periods around and commas around and, just trying to get it into the marketplace. And someone said, you need to move on to another story. And by this time we had 7 children. We were homeschooling. We've been homeschooling for about 16 years. And I was inspired by this sermon from my church. It was a guest minister at the church, and he was talking about, Esau is coming. And that was actually the very first, I think, quote that's in the book that inspired the story. And that's really about our history. We can try to run from our history, but one day it's going to catch up with you, good, bad. So that's it. That's how the story came.
Yeah, no, I think that's wonderful. And Cynthia, I'm going to put you on the spot because I know that that this book was a long time coming, right? Robin just said that she worked on it and edited it, revised it. We talked when she was on about a long time coming about how there was this balance. And Robin, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I remember you saying there was this balance between like trying to get it to a place that was marketable, right?
Mhm.
But also not editing it to a place that then it wasn't true to her story the way she was. So can I just ask you, Cynthia, because I know you were instrumental in getting it published. What did you see in it, in her writing?
She's one of the few authors that I was sold on the first page. And as an agent, I have to be really picky. I have to be picky. It's not just a critical spirit. Oh no, but that's part of the nature of the beast. Is that we're watching for the story or the book, the nonfiction book that's going to just kind of jump up off the page and grab our hearts right away. And that was Robin's story. Before I finished the first page, I thought, I love her use of language. I love what she's done to me emotionally already, even though we're early on in the story. And but it's interesting because I've gotten a peek. I know this second book that's releasing, and I've gotten a peek at what she's doing with her third book, and it's every time. This is how she writes. She grabs the reader and doesn't let go with her writing. The way she uses the English language, the way she draws us into the emotion of her characters and the complexities of the plots. So my heart just really leapt in my throat when I began to read what Robin had sent in, and I was sold from within a couple of minutes. That doesn't often happen, and it was like this glorious God moment that the sun was shining, the clouds parted, the sun was shining, and things things were singing, and part of it was me.
I
Uh,
love that.
but it and then to discover that the character of the author herself
Mm.
was as beautiful as what she was writing, that was a winning
Mm.
combination for me.
One of the things I liked so much about your first book, Robin, was I felt like that there was a heart connection between me and the characters. Like you could know the characters and experience the characters, even though their lives and their experiences were so different than mine.
Mhm.
Like I could feel the heart of the characters underneath the experience. I don't know if I'm saying that in a way that translates very well, but there was a connection, even though our lives were very different. And I think that's a real gift to be able to pull us into a story and help us experience the heart and life of someone that you just, that's not been your experiences. So yeah, that's just great. So talk to us just a little bit about the inspiration behind this story, the new one, the heart of this story.
Well, I think with both books, but specific to Till I Want No More, Maxine is carrying around, a secret, a burden. Okay, and specifically, it may be this specific story or this specific problem, but I feel like for each of us, we carry around these burdens and we carry around, things that we don't feel like we can share with other people, that weigh us down, and they affect the relationships that we have with our family, and this holding back the truth either about ourselves. It can be the anxious thoughts that we have, that we feel like we have to present this different face to people. And I think with social media, we always feel that we have to present the lipstick, or just to be put together, when inside you're carrying around either hurt or um just pain, or a secret, like Maxine, this huge thing. But there is freedom from that, and God gives us and provides opportunities to be free from that. That is not his intent for us to to carry those around alone. So that's what inspired that story. And at some point it will come out, either your health, or it's going to come out, in some awful way, but rather than just laying it down, it will get put down, or we will get put down, at some point. So when I first heard that sermon about Esau's coming, that's what led me to start, this story, that one day your past will confront you. So, and I think we talked about the long time coming about our history that can benefit us. And that's the same thing with this story. It can bless us. It could be something that we share and we live and we carry on, rather than being a burden.
I'm curious about what anyone else thinks about this, but Robin said like the Maxine in this book has like a big secret, right? That she's carrying her around that's weighing it down. But what do you guys think? I think when we carry whatever it is we're carrying that we don't want other people to know, that it feels like that kind of weight, right? No matter. So sometimes I make up stories in my head about how big something is.
Yes.
Or you think, if I share this, then something will tumble down. And it's the not sharing it that makes it
Worse.
so heavy, right? Like it makes it so big. I don't know. What do you guys, anybody have a thought on that? You can just call it out if you do. That's all right. That's how I do these things.
I felt like I really connected with Maxine. Hi, Robin, by the way. And I loved A Long Time Coming, and I love this book too. And I feel like the way that she reacts is the way that I react a lot. Like she kind of tries to cover it up or not show people how she feels. And so I think Robin has a real gift at that. Like she makes characters that are very realistic. And so I really love it. I love it as much as I loved A Long Time Coming.
Good.
Although I love Granny B a lot.
Yeah.
Yes. It's hard to me. So
yeah.
I know that the theme of forgiveness is woven through this book. How is that theme important in the story this time?
Well, I think for Maxine, like she was looking for acceptance from others and trying to prove it. I think that's what, we're always trying to prove and do with God and with others, rather than believing that it's there, rather than accepting it, accepting forgiveness. With my little people, when they were little, especially when they were really little, I'd have them say, ask for forgiveness. And it was a hard thing to do, rather than just saying, I'm sorry, but then also accepting that forgiveness, and giving that. And that's just a hard thing. It's a hard thing for Maxine to accept it, that, okay, I'm saved. What does that mean? Or I'm a Christian, or I'm a believer, but what does that mean? And that's what I really want to write about. Just these real stories of walking out our faith. What does it look like in real life, and not just, in a book or in the Bible, but what does it look like day to day?
I think when you say that, I'm thinking about the years that I spent trying to prove my worth to God, that he was right in forgiving me. Does that make sense? Like, let me, like, I know I need your forgiveness. I know you're offering it to me. Let me do really good so that you'll not be sorry you offered it to me. I know, like, I know how that doesn't sound very good when it's coming out of my mouth, but I think of that when you're saying it, because I think I'm so grateful for it, but now I've got to do something in order for him not to be like, I shouldn't have done that or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
have to dress a certain way, like, for Maxine, for any of us, I have to dress a certain way. I have to stop listening to this, and I remember once feeling I had to confess to my children that I love Prince music. And, and so they were just, I don't know, Katie could, just, some of them were like, oh, not the saint, you know what I mean? But it's like, yes, I would have left your father for Prince, but I had to, but it's not, we are who we are. God loves us as we are. And that's something for me day to day. I have to tell myself he created me and he loves me as I am. Yes, I need to be holy, live holy, and, live according to his word, but he knows who I am. And he doesn't love the made up me, he loves the me with the rollers and, hairnets and all that.
Yeah, because I think this is true that he doesn't see any difference.
Yeah.
You know, I think he doesn't see any difference when we are our world pleasing. I don't know if that's the right way to self, right? Or when we're our I'm anxious or tired or lonely or scared self. Like he sees the same heart of us and calls us into relationship the same, right?
Yeah.
We don't impress. Who are we trying to impress? Because he's
Yeah.
not impressible. I don't know if that's the right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Can I add a little something?
Absolutely. Yes.
It's kind of going just a little bit backwards, but I was really struck by this in thinking about in Till I Want No More, that one of the things that where the title kind of fits so well is that she wanted to believe that the pretend she was living was the truth.
Mm-hmm.
She really wanted to believe that that was the truth, and it kept her from the fullness of life that she could have had, and it kept her with, you know, nightmares and sleepless nights and having to pile one lie upon another, or having to skirt around everything because she had to keep track of who have I told what, and where am I standing in this. But she so desperately wanted to believe that what was real was not true and what she created was true,
Right.
until she came to the place of realizing, I don't want anything anymore. I don't want anything anymore except what is real and what is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
What impressed me about that was one of the things that impressed me about the book.
I'm going to ask this, Cynthia, and anybody else too. Why do we do that? Like, what's the motivation of capture what you were just saying about wanting what's not true to be true and wanting what's not true to be true? Whatever. What drives us for that, you think?
Think some big theologian might have a great answer to that, but
That's not what we do here.
No, I always revert to the idea that it's been true from the beginning, that it's like built into us to, you know, Eve needed somebody to blame, and there were only two people on the planet at the time. So,
Right.
so she found somebody to blame, and Adam was trying to blame the only other person in the world too. And then they both tried to blame God and the serpent and everybody else. And so I think that kind of cloaking reality with a series of lies that we weave for ourselves, and
Mm-hmm.
mask and pretending and spanks, you know, spiritual spanks, what's real and
Right.
when what's not is just
Right.
part of our nature. And it's a part of our nature we're probably going to fight until our last breath. But when we, even in a novel, when we can see it playing out in front of us, then our heart gets gripped by, that's me, or, oh yeah, that's very true for me. That really is a part of our changing then to the place where we notice it more often about ourselves, more easily, we recognize it, and then we respond differently. So we're not finished products here.
Right.
No.
But it's
I
focusing
wonder
on the
too.
hope.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, the hope that that comes from what you said, like embracing, Maria, you're up. So after this, but embracing that, you know, the part in the book synopsis about if this hadn't happened, then I wouldn't have. And so there's this thing that we can't move on because if this hadn't happened, then I wouldn't be in this situation.
Mhm.
However, this is our story. This is the situation that we're in. And the hope is, right, that all things can be redeemed and even, as scripture tells us, used for good, right? So yeah.
And that's part of the evolution of the title as well. Like it started out as Bound, and I remember Cynthia going, and so, but that focuses. I was really.
That's why we call it a working title, right?
Yeah.
You can have that for now, Robin.
On the negative. It's not focusing on the hope.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Maria, go ahead. You had something to add.
Oh, I was just going to kind of respond off of Cynthia's a little bit. And I think there's a sense of control there too. When we feel like we have false control of our surroundings or our relationships or whatever, when we keep that stuff hidden, and you're right, it snowballs into lies or whatever, but we still feel a sense of control versus putting it out there for, the Lord knows, but putting it out there for all is that lack of, we lose control of whatever. And so I think Maxine may experience that. All right, he's like, no, I'm not going there because then I can't control this anymore. And
Yeah. I think about my husband's work where sometimes they're trying to control the narrative, right? My husband's chief of staff on a campus. And so sometimes when something happens, it's like, how do we control the narrative? And like, aren't we trying to do that in our own lives sometimes? And when we share whatever it is, or the it's, I have more than one it. I don't know about anybody else, but when we share those things, then what Maria is saying, we lose control of the narrative, I think sometimes, because we can't decide how other people are going to think or what they're going to do or their reaction is. And I think I think sometimes we believe the lie that if we hold it close, then it's better. That's Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another theme in the book is about understanding that your identity comes in God alone, right? Will you talk to us just a little bit about what's in there? Or maybe I'll go to Kate for just a second. Is that okay? I'll switch and go to Kate. Yes. I believe that's a theme through the book about finding your identity in God alone. I wonder if maybe you can share why that's important in the book, or what you saw around that in the book, anything that you learned.
I mean, yeah, that part of the book was definitely one of my favorite aspects, just because I think as a young person, like as a young adult entering into the world and like battling with definitions, internal and external, it can be a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. I think when you're like breaking away and you're wrestling with the opinions of family and friends and community, and trying to find like space to only have God's definition and your own definition can be difficult. But I really appreciated that the book kind of spoke to that experience, because often I think engaging with like experiences of faith, it's usually people who are a lot older in a different place. But Maxine, and the way that I connected with that character, is really on the first steps of that battle and is really operating from a perspective that I think a lot of my own peers can recognize, where you're trying to define yourself despite what other people are saying. And I think often when you like hear the verse about like being in the world but not of it, like often we think that means non-Christian communities, but I think that's like encompassing your entire world, and the Christian community can be a part of that, and they're still not supposed to define you because God is outside of that as well. And I think that can be a hard message to grapple with, and I know that I've struggled so much with allowing myself to breathe outside of external definitions of who I am, but centering on the fact that I am loved and, fearfully and wonderfully made, and having that lesson come from fiction or come from a relationship with God is really important. And I think that it's beautifully imparted. I mean, Until I Want No More. And I really think that it's like a cross-generational story in that way. And I really connected with it for that reason.
Awesome. I think that fiction is like song lyrics to me in some ways, like that, like if they flow from two things, like the truth of scripture and the author, whatever the creative outlet is, and it could be for more than just those two things too, but if the author understands the heart of God and it's based in a scriptural truth, then it is, it is an experience that can teach you and draw you close to God. It doesn't mean that these people aren't real, right? Yeah, it actually does teach you truths about his character. So I love that. So did you learn anything about your mom from reading the book? I have to ask.
Absolutely.
You learned that she would have run off with Prince had she had a chance? That's not in there.
Spreading the gospel.
Yeah.
I'll have to
Keeping it real.
Truly answer that question. But in all seriousness, I think that I learned that we have like certain similarities. Music is a big theme, I think, in this book, and music is really important to me. And I think I turn to it for like solace, for comfort, but also just creative expression. And it was really cool to see that, I think, reflected in her own words. I learned obviously that she's a brilliant writer. I mean, I really enjoyed A Long Time Coming, but Till I Want No More was just, I've read it, I think 3 times, and I could read it again tomorrow. Like, it's beautiful, and she's just talented, and I love getting to talk about that. And I think it really represented that mothers are people. I think you see that with Vivian's relationship with Maxine, and you see that with Maxine's relationship with herself. And I think that it's so easy to put those kind of figures in your communities and your families on pedestals. Like you forget sometimes that they have struggles and they have desire and love and frustrations. And I saw that through her relationship with getting it published, as well as within the work itself. So I think it's really important to recognize that we all go through that, because it could draw you closer, because otherwise you feel a separation because, oh, I'm not exactly like this, or I'm not as talented as this or capable. But I kind of saw my mother pushing through those frustrations. So it's not as if she didn't have them, but because she allowed her faith to conquer them, which is honestly just a model. And she's my hero. So I think that this book was really important in demonstrating that, because I've gotten to see it from over my journey through college. She's had this, I think, on a publishing journey. And so as I've had frustrations, those things have been mirrored. And I think, as mothers and daughters do, we can butt heads and disagree, but it's still important, I think, to see that labor of love, because it reminds you that it overcomes all of that.
For all of us, excuse me, that are on here that are mothers, I think what Kate is saying is just really touching my heart, because they watch what we don't say, right? They watch, they learn from how we handle challenges. They don't, mom, you said moms are just people, right? They don't need a mom that is all the things on the outside, right? They need a mom with that loves them and also loves herself and tries to share what the Lord has gifted her with the world the best that she can. And I think that's beautiful, Kate. That's just a beautiful honoring of your mom. So I want to open up for just a second and see, what are some other things? Anybody else want to comment on just some things that you really appreciate about Robin's writing? Some of you have been very quiet, which is fine. You don't have to talk here, but if you want to, I want to leave space for that before we start wrapping up.
I personally love Robin's writing. I think I'm her number one fan. I tell her, I'm I'm your number. No,
I can rename you that while you're in the Zoom call. Robin's number one fan. She'd probably like that.
I like the second that I started reading, a long time coming was her first book, but the moment I started reading it just drew me in right away. And her writing just does that. I love the way that she uses characters, and she uses, I haven't seen this often done, but she uses metaphors in a way that world builds. And I think that's really unique. Her style, just the way she's an excellent writer. She really is. And I'm pretty picky about reading, and it's just beautiful. Her stories. I'm so glad that you write, Robin, because you do a great job.
And I think of all the reasons, when the first one took so long to be in a form that we could hold it in our hands, I'm so grateful for your perseverance in that, your dedication to that, because it is a beautiful story. And it's easy to say, oh, well, it was just the right time for it to be but when you're months and years wondering, why am I even doing this? I don't know that was your thought all the time, but it had to have been your thought every once in a while, right? Why am I even doing this? Thank you. Thank you for pressing on, because it is a beautiful story, and I'm grateful to have it in my life. Yeah. Anybody else just want to lift up something that Lisa, go. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I read Long Time Coming, and I listened to Long Time Coming, and I just want to plug the audiobook, because the narrator was wonderful, and I felt like I was actually in the room with them, and all of the intonations and just all the feelings coming from the voice of the narrator for each of those characters was great. And I thought Granny B was just hilarious. And when I read it in my own voice, in my own head, it didn't come out the same. So that's just a plug for the audiobook. I loved it.
Does this one have an audio version too, Robin?
It does.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the narrator, but I've heard her, and she's wonderful.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Yay. So.
I want to say something. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Go ahead, Kim.
Okay. I love both books. I love Robin. I love her story, everything. And she has a strong command of language. That I think someone said at the beginning of this. It just kind of brings you right in from the first page. But also the way she weaves in stories about food.
Yes.
That is significant, because it's you can relate to the story. in a whole different way. And those details, I think, just make the whole both books just come alive. Those details all the way down to the food.
I think I appreciate you saying that, because it is sometimes those parts of the story that, like, you're like, I feel like I'm there, right? Because I know what they're cooking, or I know that song, or whatever is happening. Yeah, I can see that
Yeah.
place in my mind. I think that too when I was reading A Long Time Coming. Like I it's probably not right, but it was right to me. I knew what Granny B's house looked like. I knew what I knew what that street looked like. I knew, like, in my mind, I could see it perfectly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Well, right now, my family's working on the pork roast recipe, the cerdo asado. So that's what it smells like right now. They're doing a marinade.
Okay.
I'm going to put it on social media soon. So it takes like forever and a whole bunch of oranges. So be prepared.
well, I understand Mary Ruth is your neighbor, so she might just need
Yes.
to be walking over to
Yes.
find herself some of
Yes.
that.
The definition of a good neighbor. Absolutely, yeah.
She's been a blessing.
Robin or Kate or Cynthia, any like kind of wrap up words before we talk about where to find the book and all those kind of good details?
Can I just jump in?
Oh yes, go ahead, please.
I was not going to turn on my camera because I just like rushed in here, finished cooking, but
There's no judgment
everybody
here.
else has their camera on, so now I feel bad. But I'll just say hi to Robin because it's been a long time. Hey.
Yes.
Okay, I'm like you guys. I love Robin. I've only known her probably it's been a year and a half.
Yeah.
And that was just God's timing. But I loved her book, and I love her and her family. My kids pick on me. They're like, Mom, you're like girl crushing. You're too old to have a crush on a lady. I'm like, awesome. She is like the best. But I feel like when I read her book, I felt like it was my family. Like that's how connected it was. I'm like, I can relate to everything she's saying. This is my crazy family. Like it was so just real to me. And I let my mom borrow the book, and like she hasn't given it back. So I'm like, she's got another one now, Mom. Like I ordered the other one. So but she, like, I echo everything everybody else is saying. She is really a wordsmith. Like I love how she uses words, and just like you were saying, the metaphors, and just being able to bring the experiences to life in a whole different way with her use of words. And I think that's wonderful. So well done, Robin. And Kate, I love what you said. That I was sitting here like about to cry. No, I see your tissue, Robin. I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna have to come visit very, very soon because I miss you.
I actually quoted, she allowed me, Rose, we were talking one day, and about, if you could see your tears, what would your tears say? And that's actually one of the quotes I used in the book. What would your tears say? And sometimes our brokenness, it just says so much more than, that appearance, that whole appearance that we try to give. It's being broken and poured out, and what does that say about you? What does it say to the Lord? And what does it say about the Lord, and our faith?
When you're saying that, both of you, Rose and Robin, there's a song by Amy Grant called Better Than a Hallelujah. Do you guys, anybody know that song? Yeah. And I think she talks about that realness in that song, where sometimes it's that desperation plea, or sometimes it's the brokenness, or like when we get real, that's better than any kind of formal ritual of hallelujah. Not that there's not a place for rituals, but that's that the Lord wants that realness from us. And so I love that. Yes. What do our tears say? Because I think sometimes they're better than a hallelujah, like for the Lord. Yeah. So anybody else, Cynthia or Robin, anything else about the book in particular you just want to like, hey, and this?
I had this thought in my mind, Robin, that one of the things that you accomplish with your book, it's not a book to teach anything, but wow, we wind up learning anyway. It's an entertaining story, but wow, we wound up learning. And one of the strong themes that I saw was the things we do for love, and how loving families sometimes drive us nuts, but the love behind what they're doing is that solid foundation. And that's what we revert to all the time. I think any of us could read about that family. And just like you said, Rose, we're seeing our own family in it, even if our circumstances are very different. But even when I think back to my own mom, and I'm seeing how some of the things that made me nuts when I was a kid wound up being the very things I counted on so much as an adult. So
Hear that, Kate?
Write
kudos
that down, Kate.
kudos to you for that as well, that you're helping all of us to value the things they did for love of us, the things we do for love of our kids, the things Jesus did for love of us, and the lengths that we'll go to because of love. So thank you.
I think it's really interesting. I remember my mom writing it, and she would continue like ask me like, does it come across a love story? Because like I don't think it's a love story, but I think you've really captured that maybe it's a story of a different kind of love. Like I think often we like undercut like the power of like a generational, a family love story, and that's I think a central theme with both of her books because it's honestly more long lasting than romantic because it's between, you know, the main characters and God and the main characters and their loved ones, and that demonstrates and models something more important than like a romance could. Yes. And I think it's really important to like emphasize that moving through it, because even if you're seeing two people who love each other, there's like a greater lesson underneath it. Particularly I think between like the family ties and bonds and how we build those and those break down, but like love remains constant. So that's something that really stands out to me.
Kate, can we hire you to
No, that's what I was thinking. What she
do
said.
commentary on every book that's ever been written?
Yes.
I don't know what you're studying, but you may have an opportunity that's opening up here for you, Kate. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think the family theme is interesting and also tricky, Robin, because I think, you know, for me anyway, I believe that the way that our families, we and our family units handle or don't handle the it's, you know, that we've talked about, those things that we're carrying it around, have a tremendous impact on us as people. And so be able to look at a family, I'm so encouraged by just being able to look at a family like in your writings that is, you know, I don't remember who said it, maybe it was Rose, but that is imperfect, that they have things between them and yet they love. And yet they love. And that is so encouraging, I think, because it helps me in my own family unit feel like, okay, if we're leading with love, we're going to be okay. Like, even if some of the things are not, you know, exactly the way that I wish they were. So yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
So the book launches today. Go
God
ahead.
is pursuing Maxine. No, I was just saying throughout the book, God is pursuing Maxine. You know, that's the love story, you know, that part of what Catherine was saying, and it's that's the love story, and it does affect, you know, how she loves and how she accepts love. But that's, you know, he pursues her in her dreams and, you know, in her therapy, just all of those things. So that's the love story.
Yeah. I call that his relentless pursuit of me. That's what, it never lets up. So.
Yeah. Yes. Relentless pursuit.
Yeah. So the book launches today. It is available wherever books are sold, right? Yes. You can buy it wherever. I put the link in the comments for those who might be watching or pick this up later. So the link that I just put the Amazon link. If there's a different link, I can put that as well. If there's somewhere else that you'd like to promote. And Robin's website is, correct me if I'm wrong, Robin W. Pearson, Pearson.com, right? Yes. Anywhere else that you want to, any other place for shout out or follow me here or subscribe to this or?
They subscribe to my newsletter. That will be lovely. You can find that on, you know, through my website, and their giveaways and all of that, and online on social media. So yes.
All at Robin W. Pearson. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. This has been so fun. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Thank you.
Robin.
Thank you so much. Thanks for celebrating with me.
All the best congratulations that there can be, friend. So. Can I make a quick plug? Because Cynthia is going to be back with us in just a couple of weeks in February. Can I do this? Because we're going to talk about her book, Afraid of the Light, Cynthia Rupti. We're going to talk about this one. So she's going to be back on February 16, I think. I think that's the right date. Is that a Tuesday? Yes. And and so we're going to be together talking about her book, which is awesome also. So, all right. Until next time, friends.
Thank you.